Hello, my name is Sherry Blake. For those of you that I have not met, my daughter is Allie. Allie is 16 and was diagnosed with Skraban-Deardorff when she was 9. She was one of the original kids diagnosed, so it's been really fun to get to know all of you and get to build our community. When our board started talking about doing a speaker series, one of the first people that popped into my mind was Michael. Michael has been Allie's speech therapist for, gosh, probably 7 or 8 years now. We met Michael when Allie did an intensive apraxia speech boot camp right at the beginning. Michael is a very innovative thinker. He is a board certified behavior analyst and also a speech language pathologist. Hard to say that. One of the things we love most of Michael is his creative way of approaching speech. He is always thinking out of the box, and also thinking of creative ways to engage our daughter. You can't tell from Zoom, but I think Michael's 6'3", 6'4", and he has been known to be in a yoga pose to get Allie motivated in speech. So I'm super excited that Michael is going to do our speaking session, our session today. If you have any questions, I think what we're trying to do is capture those in the chat, and then Jen is going to summarize those, and at the end of Michael's presentation, we will answer all the questions. If anyone doesn't have anything else, I'll go ahead and let Michael take over.
Good morning, everybody. Let me get our PowerPoint pulled up here. Can you guys see it? Okay, awesome. So thanks, Sherry, for having me today. Like Sherry said, about 7 years ago, I got to meet her daughter, Allie, and a time ago, I'd met her previous in life at another career path that I was doing, but it was definitely a joy that I've got to go on. And, as we kind of explored the various communication things, I've found over time that it's always just been this like roller coaster of just having to think outside the box. You never quite know what's going to work or what's not going to work because there's just so very little research out there. But today I'm going to talk about augmentative and alternative communication. One of the things that I found early on when working with Allie was the power of using more than one means to communicate so that others could understand us. And this kind of area of our field is quite vast, and there's a lot of things that we'll get into about it. So first thing, as Sherry said, I'm a speech language pathologist. It's a mouthful of things that basically means I help people talk and help people communicate. I have a beautiful wife and 2 children. My oldest is Owen. He is 7, and he is our sensitive, sweet, kind kid. And then my youngest is Ray. He's 2, and we're saving for his bail money because he is going to do something. He's going to wreck something. So today we're going to kind of go through kind of generally what speech therapy is, what a speech pathologist is, what is AAC, how it can help, and then obviously have some time for question and answers. So who are speech pathologists? So we're healthcare professionals. We have graduate degrees, and we work on evaluating, diagnosing, and treating various communication disorders and swallowing disorders, and/or supporting other disorders that have speech and language as impairments or areas that need support. We work with individuals of all ages, infants all the way to elderly. I think a lot of people know us for, if you've ever seen the movie The King's Speech and maybe helping with someone who stutters, that's really common. I also get a lot of people who maybe know us because we help the kid that can't say R. But our scope of practice and the things that we can help and serve is very, very broad. And once we kind of get out there and we start practicing, all of us kind of carve out our own little niche of areas because there's no way that all of us can know all of it. It's just being able to know what areas we can help with and then helping those families that we can. So let's kind of jump into it. What is AAC, Augmented Alternative Communication? So AAC refers to several different methods or ways to communicate to help enhance communication. In general, we break AAC down into two categories. We call it either unaided or aided. Generally, that means if it's unaided, I can walk around and I don't need anything to communicate. If I'm speaking from an aided side, I'm talking about I have to have something to also augment or help me communicate. AAC has been around for years and years and years. And in the field of speech pathology, we love to have tons of different words for the same thing. So what you might hear people talk about is assistive technology, that they're talking about this multimodal communication. You might hear, speech generating device, speech devices. We have tons of different words that we use for those things. When we talk about and as a whole, one of the biggest successes that I have found when working with children that need to augment and have alternative ways to communicate, not one of these circles is enough. It's super important early on when I'm helping support and trying to figure out how are we going to communicate. I go at it with here's the entire toolbox of things. I can use all these unaided things like sign language, gestures, body language, facial expressions, and then I can supplement that too with using some type of recorded speech device, pictures, a communication board. There's so many tools at our disposal that we can use to help support communication. Um, when when we think about how AAC can help us, um, my biggest area is I I really care about children's abilities to share what brings them joy. That is my first and foremost goal. I know a lot of people talk about, and if those of you who have a speech pathologist, I'm sure your speech pathologists you worked with talk about, being able to ask for what they want and need. Those are huge priorities too. But when it comes to the power of communication, I love when a kid can share joy because that in itself is so connecting. It's so, hey, you understand me. You understand what I'm trying to talk to you about, what makes me happy. And when I go through the process of considering different AAC modalities and interventions, one of those really early things that I like to work on is being able to help a kid be able to share what brings them joy, what makes them happy. Um, it also helps with enhancing independence, such as being able to ask for our wants and needs. Competence through self-advocacy. I love teaching a kid to boss me around. Like, yeah, you tell me that I need to go move this thing over here. Cool. Like, love every bit about those kind of things. Another powerful thing, and I think something that, all the families in here might understand is that there's a lot of different individual needs and there's a lot of different maybe unique things about your child that you have to consider when it comes to communication and their independence. And the beauty of AAC is, and kind of like back to that picture of all the bubbles of things, we can plug and play, right? We can customize, we can, hey, this works, cool, awesome, this doesn't, throw it out. There's so many different things that we can do that we can make it unique and individual to them. Um, it's also, again, super beneficial. Here's the word multimodal communication, because it makes language visible. One of the big things, and this transcends almost every single area of our field when I work with children. Um, when we're talking as humans and we think about language as a whole, it's super easy to visualize things like dog. There's a really concrete visual representation of what a dog is. Four-legged creature, has fur, has a tail. But when we use words like want or help or open, those kind of words, or blue or red, those kind of words become less visual, right? How do I represent what those words mean? And so AAC can help children be able to see what those words mean because it provides those different pictures, the signs, the different actions that go along with it. Um, Another huge thing is a lot of the higher tech AAC, and we'll get to that to a second, can also facilitate learning and literacy development. It can enhance social interactions. Uh, when another person can't understand what we're saying, if we can supplement that to help them better understand, it helps those connections form. And then obviously it can help reduce those communication barriers that we may have in different settings and being able to clarify what our intent is. So what AAC can look like. So we talked about there's unaided and aided. So the unaided obviously being sign language, gestures, things that I can just walk around. I don't need anything. When we think about those aided things, that's what a lot of people tend to think about. So in the aided department, we tend to talk about things as low tech, mid tech, or high tech. And it's kind of how we break and categorize down these different things. And again, just like I talked about those bubbles and those circles, we can use all of those different things. We can still plug and play from all of these different options, even within here. So when we think of like low tech, we can think of things like picture books, pictures, writing out lists, those like little tablet boards. Um, I have like right here, I have like sentence strips that I might use with a friend as a way to communicate. This is what they're saying. They could bring it up to me and say, I want and hold it up next to the thing that they're wanting. Um, they make, and some of these things are free resources. You can get like an entire communication book, and like this one, you like flip. I don't know if it's hard to see with where I'm at presenting, but you can flip to be able to, and kids can touch and point. This one's a pretty detailed one, but they make like single page ones, which would be like a communication board. Um, and then we kind of get into mid-tech options, and mid-tech options usually have batteries. They usually have some type of speech output or noise output. Um, but they're usually very simple to use, and they're usually a little bit more, they're less robust is kind of the term we like to say. Um, they're also really good supports for kids that and even adults that like fine motor is really hard. Um, they're a good segue. The kind of barriers that we face with it is like for instance, we might use a button, but I have to program this button and it can only say one message at a time. And also it's my message that I'm inferring that I think that speaker's trying to say. So I'm not really giving them the power of, oh, that's what they really were trying to tell me, but a good guess. You also can see on the slide that there's these kind of devices like this. They have like sheets that slide into them, and those sheets have memorized buttons. Um, this mid tech is kind of, I like to say, is some of our 80s technology. And actually, recently I was on Amazon, and this is like 20 bucks on Amazon. I'm gonna see if I can get it a little bit closer there. This would be considered a mid-tech option. And what's really cool about this is if I turn it on, I can answer some really basic things like there's yes and no and help and I'm happy and I'm mad, I'm hungry, I want music, and all just kind of like a remote control. If I push it, I don't know if we can hear it, but I'd like to watch TV. That said I wanted to watch TV. And I could just push the button and it says it. So that would be like a mid-tech option. But these are all the types of ways I can communicate. This is all I have. So then that brings us into kind of the high tech. And the high tech is, well, technology as a whole, there's a lot to choose from. I feel like almost every week I'm hearing of some new high-tech option. And high-tech options are those that are typically associated with devices. They're extremely robust, highly customizable. And they offer tons of different advanced features. And I have some that I'm going to show to you guys here a little bit as well. So let me pull that up, and so I can kind of show you those high-tech things. So when we think about high tech, the big things that we have to go through when it comes to evaluation is we have the device, and then we have the vocabulary. The device is all about how can the child access it. What is the considerations you need to make regarding like the size visually so they can see it? How are they going to touch? Are they going to touch it? Are they going to look at it? Are they to talk? Are they going to use a button to access it? There's switches. There's tons of different adaptability ways to do it. And to kind of show you all, devices come in tons of different sizes. So I can get devices that are, they're paper, but this is the actual size of the device. And I can go from this all the way to something as big as this. And there's even ones that are bigger than this. So there's a lot of, and I have even more here, of devices that we can pick from to help a child. But all of these devices have different vocabularies in them. And the vocabularies matter. Some of the common ones that you might have heard of if you're involved in this world are things like LAMP Words for Life, Touch Chat, Word Power, Proloquo to Go. There's a various amounts of those, and I'm going to share my iPad real quick with you guys to kind of show you just the few that I have on my own device right now. Let's see. Aha. So this is my kind of AAC folder on my iPad, and I have Proloquo to Go, which is a super robust, high-tech vocabulary. This vocabulary I literally just had it open and it had a vocab for me. We'll go to this one. So this one's highly customizable. I can go in and add and edit buttons. I could pick things like if my friend really liked Barbie, I could easily add the word Barbie for them to use Barbie. So there's a lot of like quick things that you can do with this. This vocabulary has some very specific things. When we think about vocabulary, and this is really why I always say consult a speech pathologist or get involved with it, there's a lot of different variables that we consider. We consider how what the pictures look like. Are the symbols iconic enough to resonate with that speaker? Is it quick? Is it fast? How much navigation do I have to use with it? Another really common one that people use is like LAMP. It uses semantic compaction. So one word is found on any intervention that a lot of people in the speech community will talk about, which is the motor planning approach. And so this one, you have to kind of know what the compaction is. So I have to know that under the fireworks, the please is my social words, because they're electrifying words, and you kind of have to have those kind of ways to connect those dots within it. This one, as it lays out, it's kind of like all the symbols are everywhere. If we look at something like touch chat or word power, this kind of gets into more of supporting literacy development, language things. A lot of families, when I tell them this, it kind of connects the dots. This vocabulary is designed in a way that it builds a sentence from left to right. So your subjects, your nouns, are on the left. I, my, me, it, you. My verbs are in the middle. and then things that might modify the sentence are at the end of it. And different vocabularies have different levels of robustity to them. Like LAMP has 3,000 words. Word Power has, I think, 5,000 and something words standard. So there's tons of different things. And all of these devices from a high tech, I can customize and tailor and make unique to that child. Some speech paths will tell you not to. I highly disagree and say what works. We need to make sure that we are being able to share our joy, express our wants and needs, and make things happen. So let me switch back over to our presentation here. So as we're going through the process of making evaluations, I showed you guys some of those vocabularies, but one of the things that we also have to think about is that the device and the access of it. So this picture here on the left, my friend here is, this is a Tobii Dynavox i115 eye gaze device. As you can tell that these symbols on here they're hard to read from this picture, but they're actual pictures of mom's van. This is a picture of, I believe, his scooter that he likes to ride. This is a picture of a bed. We just replaced it with his actual picture of his bed, but they were ordering it and it hadn't came in yet. And for this user, when they look at the device, they are able to basically dwell. How long their eyes sit on the device will activate that button and speak the message. Devices like this one are so powerful that he can turn his TV on, he can change the channel with it, he can turn the lights on in his bedroom, all from using his eyes. And that's just a few things. One of the coolest things that he can do now is he can actually play fetch with his dogs. They've got a machine that is voice controlled, and the dogs have learned how to basically put the ball in the machine, and he could say fetch, and we've programmed it to where that activates the motor movement of it, and it goes screw and shoots the ball for the dogs to go play fetch. And they go grab it and they run back. It's a really, really cool thing. And when it comes to all of the different setups within eye gaze, this is a whole nother world, but a great way of accessing. So you don't have to have your hands to do it. The one that is on the right, so the device itself is a NovaChat device. It's a NovaChat 10, but the vocabulary that's on it, and you can have different vocabularies. This is word power. And for this friend, it might be hard to see, but there's kind of like a clear thing sitting over the buttons. And right here, you can kind of see the little holes for it. That is an accessory that can go on the device that helps support fine motor. So for a friend that maybe when we are extending our hand, or maybe it's a visual thing, we often might like, we're not just the most accurate with it. I can customize the size of that circle so that their finger can rest inside of it. They can catch their finger on it, and it helps them be more accurate with it. I'm holding one up right now, but this is like a black version of it. This is called a key guard, and it again has little grids that you can use to help catch your finger to access things. There's also within the settings, they use to help with accessibility. So my friend right here that's accessing this, when he pushes his button, the button gets bigger, it lights up, it changes colors, and it's designed in a way that he has to hold it for a second, and when he lets go of it, it says it. So all he has to do is rest his finger on that screen, and he can drag his finger around to whatever button to help with his stability with it. And then when he lets go of it, it says the word that we're trying to say. Another wonderful thing about these devices is how highly mobile they are. Some of my friends love to go grocery shopping, and so this friend's able to put it in the basket with him, have his grocery list, and be able to walk around the store, ask people for help, identify the objects in the store, be able to count up his money with it and know we were practicing budgeting. And so he had a whole nother page where he was adding up like a calculator, how much he was spending at the store. Again, this one right here is this is another high-tech eye gaze device. My friend was asking for me to play Wheel of Fortune on my iPad. This is kind of early on in the early stage, and again, not mounted to our wheelchair, but sitting on our table and mounted there. So there's a more adaptability things that we can consider with it. Um, and then what's really cool is they can get as small as the size of a phone. And this is one of my favorite videos right here. My friend here is riding his bicycle, and in his hand, let me see if I can get a good, in his hand is his device, and he's wearing a special harness that you can get. There's a lady out of California that has a company that makes these, and it allows those devices to be worn just right around your chest, and he can say, "Mom, watch me," is what he says. And then he goes and takes off on his bike. And there's no barrier there with his device being right there. He can zoom around on his bicycle and it doesn't impact his ability to play and run and have fun and do all those things. Oh, there we go. So one of the big things that we have parents come to me about is they have a lot of concerns when it comes to using any type of AAC. And there's a lot of myths that surround AAC. One of the first things and if any of you guys have battled with insurance, they love to say that there's prerequisite skills. But research shows there are 0 prerequisite skills for children to learn AAC. It is something that you could start from day one and start supporting and helping a child communicate and augmenting it. Another huge myth, and one that unfortunately some of my colleagues really struggle with, is that everyone should use the same AAC system. I always like to say that it's what the kid wants to pick, not what you're the adult comfortable with. Oftentimes what I see is people will go with what they're comfortable with or what the parent's comfortable with. And I highly encourage you to be the advocate for your child and say, I want to try more than one type of vocabulary, more than one system, more than one language that exists to see which one our child gravitates to. Because you might find that there's a better vocabulary out there than the one that is maybe more comfortable to the speech path. It's also super important that if you guys go down the route of this, that you become an expert on it too, and you can use it better than your child. Because one of the powerful things that you're going to do is model, and you have to be able to model faster than they can. You have to be able to access it better than they can, because that's how you can teach it and show it to them. The biggest one I would get from parents is that using AAC will stop speech development, that they're not going to talk because now they have this device. And that is not true at all. There's no research out there that supports that. In fact, I have children that can't stop talking, that I still get them a device because of the power that it has in making language visual, letting them prompt themselves, letting them recall and see the words. Some of the vocabularies will like predict. So like if they know they're trying to ask for something, so they're going to say I, which is a noun, and then it pulls up all the verbs. Okay, cool. You said I. What verb are you wanting? And so it might help them recall. Oh, I was trying to say that I have something. Oh, have. So I have a friend that'll be like, I pulls up all the verbs, looks at the verb, have, and then just finishes talking. But that device helped them start what they were trying to say to me. Another huge myth is that we should always use photos before symbols. That symbols can represent more than one thing, and a photo only represents one thing. So by using symbols, we're providing more opportunities to access more powerful things. Versus if I had a picture of a dog, it's just getting access to that picture of that dog. or I'm just talking about that dog. But if I had a symbol for open, that might mean that I can open the door. And it has a variety of different things that we can use and do with that. Another big myth is that if we use it in our speech session alone, that's enough. It's not. You need to use it everywhere, all the time. Even after your kid goes to sleep, I always tell parents, after your kid goes to sleep and they have a device, you go talk to your husband or wife with it, and you figure out how it works, because that helps you support with the modeling aspect of it. Anytime I have a child or there's a new vocabulary out there that I need to learn, one of my favorite things to do, and my wife hates me for it, is I will go and take I'll go and take a device and I will pretend like I can't use these words and I constrain myself to the device. And I can tell you that that will make you learn it fast. And you will learn where those words are because you're going to want to say what you want to say. Another big myth is that AAC is only for requesting, which is, again, not true. You can share joy, you can share pictures. There's with advances in technology, with like Alexa, you can turn on lights, you can do things. I had a friend that would come into my speech session and he would tell my Alexa that I keep in my office, hey, Alexa, play Harry Styles with his talker. And we would listen to Harry Styles the entire session, but he had the power of being able to do that with his device. And then the last myth is a person should only ever use one method of communication. And that's flat out wrong. Even us as humans that don't need augmentative things use more than one method to communicate. We use our facial expressions, we use our hands and our gestures, we use our voice. That's more than one method to communicate right there. So everyone should have the power to be able to use all the methods at their disposal to be able to communicate, whatever that is. So I know that you all live in different parts of the world, and finding these kind of things can be hard. There are some really well-known AAC companies that have different funding methods. Tobii Dynavox and PRC Saltillo are two of probably the world's biggest, and they're considered international. They ship internationally, and they have a variety of different products and devices. But even then, if when you go to something that's dedicated, that's like the ones that I showed up, being that this would be a dedicated device, all it has is the vocabulary on it. Those can get very pricey very quickly. If you're looking for something that you can do that's more affordable, if you have an iPad, is you can get different apps. I highly recommend checking out apps like Touch Chat, which has word power on it, Proloquo to Go. There is TD Snap, which I couldn't find a picture of the logo. And then there's Lamp Words for Life. Now, I would definitely consult with a speech pathologist about which vocabulary is right for your child before you get it. These vocabularies, to download them, run about $300 each. So you don't want to be buying every single one of them. I will tell you that in October and in March, every year, they go half price for a week. So you can get them for $150 those 2 months of the year. There's also some great international organizations and resources out there that can help support devices. There's the International Society for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. They have an awesome website that can help connect you with different funding resources and ways to get devices in your hands, as well as other AAC or assistive technology in general. There's also various regional and national organizations. I know here, like in the state of Oklahoma, we have a company called AbleTech, and they are a federally funded nonprofit that provides loaner devices and other assistive technology to the community of all ages. And then there are some different government programs and nonprofit things that you can find as well. And then in any given state, if you're in the United States, every state in the United States has a funding rep for the major companies. So in the state of Oklahoma, I have a rep for PRC Saltillo. I have a rep for Tobii Dynavox. I have a rep for Linguist Systems. So there's a lot of different, there's like a local person you can call and talk to about it. So I highly encourage you, if you're in the United States and you want to find a rep, you can go to those websites and they have like a link that's like find my rep, and they will get you their email, their phone number. And I have yet to meet a rep that isn't helpful and isn't willing to like help connect you with the greater surrounding things. I feel like I threw a lot out there, but what kind of questions do you guys have?
Thank you so much, Michael.
Of course.
Wonderful presentation. Listening to your presentation, there's a couple things. I was definitely one of those parents that was nervous to start because Allie did have some language, and I was afraid if we started that that would stop her language, and that absolutely was not true. I know I've told this story before, but I think my aha moment with Allie was she gets horrible headaches, and she came in and she said, "I hurt, I hurt." So I was trying to go through, does your arm hurt? Does your head hurt? And I said, go get your talker. She came back with her iPad and said, mosquito bite, arm hurt. I was like, oh, you have a mosquito bite. Mosquito is a word she would never been able to pronounce, but she was able to communicate her needs with her device. So definitely has been a positive influence on her. I know we have a couple of questions, so I'm going to pass it to Jen to go ahead and ask the questions that we've had in the chat. And if anybody else has any questions, please definitely put them in the chat.
Thanks, Sherry. Agree with what Sherry said. Michael, great presentation. Really enjoyed it. So a few questions. I know you went over a number of the AAC device boards and word options and some of those that cost. Are there any free communication apps for parents to have on their phones?
So there are some free ones. Some of the barriers with the free devices, some of the barriers with the free apps is that they're usually not as robust and they don't let you edit as much. But if I can think of a few that might be free right off the bat is Go Talk Now. It'll let you create small little customizable boards that you can use to help support. Speak for Yourself is another free one. A really popular one that's I would say very cost effective and affordable. It's called Cough Drop. It's $5 a month. You have to have a subscription for it, but it's a pretty good vocabulary that works on not just iPads, but Samsung tablets, Android. It works across all things. Though it works in a web browser. It's a really great affordable application. And you can sometimes also get like TD Snap is free to use, but if you want it to have voice output, you have to pay. But they'll let you download it for free. So there are some various ones like that that are free.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any devices that learn how a child speaks and then repeats it for others to understand? Like, for example, it learns like that you're aware of, that it learns the manner in which one speaks or nuances and how they pronounce something, and then kind of learns their language and can repeat it so it's clear to the person they're speaking to?
I don't think there's anything that's publicly available in that realm when it comes to that. I know that I've seen some really cool like research studies of things like that they're working on, especially with AI and various things like that. A lot of the high-tech devices we have right now will let you record speech. And so one of the things that I've done with one of the children that loves, they kind of didn't like the synthesized voice, is I, in speech sessions, would get videos of him saying the word that he was trying to say. And I would, maybe get 40 or 30, and I'd get the best one that I could. And I would go into my own like voice editing software, like from the Adobe suite, and I would like clip the video, tweak the video, get the speech to where it sounded as best as it could, and then I would load it into his device. But you can also record your own voice as well and have the button say the word you're wanting. And a lot of these more high-tech versions or more expensive vocabularies even let you edit pronunciations to be able to say it how you think they would want to say it as well.
Okay, great, thanks. What are some of the common challenges you face when you first introduce an AAC device, and how do you kind of overcome those?
So I think the first challenge is you have to make it meaningful and motivational. And that kind of goes back into the sharing joy. So when I think about those first kind of challenges, it's how can I get the kid excited to want to use it? And usually by the time I'm introducing it, I have a pretty good idea of what they're excited about. And that might mean that I have to kind of introduce it in a very certain way. And maybe it doesn't look like we're communicating very much initially. Maybe it looks like we're just playing a lot with it. But that motivation aspect allows you to shift into that and using it for language. Like the eye gaze device has a lot of games that you can play. Like you can there's one where like it's whack-a-mole, and so the moles pop up and they tease you, and you have to like look at them and then you can smash them with a hammer. But that might be really motivating for our friend, and you're practicing accessing the device without ever using it for communication.
Great, thanks. What approach do you recommend to integrate into a child's daily routine?
What approach?
So if you were like, how would you bring it, I guess, start to get them to use it more on a regular basis, or if there's a specific routine in their day to get them?
So my recommendation is just it lives in their day. It's all consuming. You would carry it across where you're at. You would use it in every location, and the foundational thing we do is model, right? I wouldn't expect that they're using it, but I would use it to model, just like we would if we were modeling to our kid. How I'm mad right now. I'm going to go get some milk from the refrigerator, but I would use it on the device and say, and show that like these words match these words that match all those other, ways of communicating that I'm doing.
Okay, great, thanks. For nonverbal children with limited gestures, which device would you recommend to try first? The child's able to make good progress with the picture board already.
So I would go. Oh, this kind of gets me on a soapbox for a second. Okay. If your child is using a picture board already fairly well, and you feel like they understand language, then I would go with something other than LAMP to start. I would look into Proloquo, I would look into Touch Chat, I would look into TD Snap. Though LAMP is very powerful and is the right fit for some children, I personally reserve that for children that I oftentimes call it the segue, and I'm very controversial when it comes to that. So this is again my clinical opinion. I know adult speakers who use LAMP and are beautiful with it and do great things with it. I always just see it as a segue to a higher, more robust vocabulary. But I would explore something like Proloquo, TD Snap, LAMP Words for Life, not LAMP Words for Life, Touch Chat, those various kind of communications because of their predictability and their speed at which you can communicate.
Thank you. So I'm just going to read this one exactly how the person wrote it. So they're currently doing a trial for Accent 1000, and their daughter's 4 and is just learning how to point. So it's hard for her to use. Are there any other programs or devices that you would recommend to try to start that would start easier while the child can still grow with it?
Yes. Some of this would be hard for me to answer just because I haven't evaluated or like get to see maybe some of the considerations you were making with your device selection. My initial thought when I hear 4-year-old with an Accent 1000 is that's a really big device for a 4-year-old to lug around. Now, you guys might be using it because of maybe visually we need that like size to matter. But I would, if I'm just going off of like what I might introduce to just any 4-year-old, I would probably go with a smaller device size, like maybe a NovaChat 8, Accent 800, something a little bit smaller. And I would pick a vocabulary that had less visual, like less symbols on it. If you're using an Accent device, you're either using Unity or you're using LAMP. And a lot of those have 88 symbols on it. And it's really narrowing how much it requires a lot of scanning, and like the size of the icons are really small. But if you went with something like word power or the gateway to language learning vocabulary, you could decrease the grid size, make those icons bigger, kind of like my friend with eye gaze was using, had those bigger, it was just 6 symbols on the page, they were really big. It decreases that ability to scan and they can make them more successful.
Thank you. Are there any resources where you can make visuals that match the images on your child's specific AAC program, for example, the visual grocery list?
Yes. So most whatever vocabulary you're using is either using symbol stick symbols or PCS symbols. PCS is board maker. So if you had board maker, you could get those symbols. Also, a lot of the companies will not sell, sorry, for free, will have a downloaded version of their pictures on their website. You can get the entire vocabulary in picture format to be able to make matching icons. Another powerful thing is if you have it on an iPad, screenshot it. So many times I'll just screenshot the vocabulary and drag and pull it over and then crop all the pictures out that I need. That's another great thing. And then it's called Smarty Symbols. It's a website. It's like $9 a month, and they have millions of PCS symbols that you can download in JPEG, PNG, transparent, black and white, change the colors, modify. There's a lot of things you can do with it.
Awesome. Thanks. Any recommendations for overcoming insurance denying an AAC in favor of a PACS book?
Yes, have your speech pathologist make sure that they write in enough justification how PECS is limiting their ability to communicate and having some comparing and contrasting. I've submitted videos before of, hey, with the PECS, this is all we can ask for, but with the device, this is all, look at all the extra things we can do. That's a huge support you can do with insurance. Obviously, you can tie in different research articles that whatever company you're thinking, or if you're, I'm guessing if you're going through insurance, you're working with a company. But I know like Toby Dynavox has an entire like literature review by each denial that insurance has, and you can literally just pull up and use all of the citations in there and provide your rationale within the report to them.
Thanks. And then they're trying to find the best option for their daughter that just started, but she loves just pressing buttons on toys. And so they worry that just to press it to hear the voices versus understanding the correlation between what the voice is saying and the action. What are your thoughts on the best action? Is there any risk of actually inhibiting speech development with that?
Definitely not a risk of hindering speech development. There are a lot of things you can do. So for friends that love to just press buttons like crazy, I can put in a time delay so that they have to wait a second between buttons that they press. So then it's maybe not as like, it's not as like the input, that auditory input that they might be getting from it, they can't gain access to as much. So then it kind of can slow down. Oh, this means what it is. You can hide certain buttons. You can set it up in a way that it's used just for like, oh, remember, here's what here's our things that we play with, and present it in different ways. I mean, there's a couple different options you could do when it comes to trying to help not make it just a toy.
Thanks. I think that's all the questions. Anybody have any other questions for Michael? Sure, I'll turn it back to you.
Anything else? Does anyone have any questions? I think everybody's muted, so if you've got a question, feel free to unmute yourself.
I don't have a question, but just wanted to say a huge thank you, Michael. This was so helpful, so informative. I think it feels like our own like private session that we get with you. So this is amazing.
No, thank you for letting me be a part of it. And I wish I could, I mean, there's so much I could share more on. This could be 10 days worth of talking and still not cover everything that's involved into it. And I know it's just a snapshot. And so I did leave my information, and you know, Sherry also has my information. So please, anybody, if you need to, you know, chat more or ask maybe a more specific question at a later time, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I love helping people find resources and, you know, answering any questions, you know, anytime.
I had a question. So
Yeah.
you've been waiting so long for an ACC device because I don't know, the area that we're in is like smaller. There's not enough doctors, all this stuff. So I was thinking maybe I could just try and set up something myself until we can get him one, or even get him into the doctor. So we were looking at an iPad. Is this something I should try and do, or just wait?
I say don't wait, especially if it sounds like, you know, you're one, you feel like it would be beneficial. I think one of the things to consider is with the iPad, what type of app that you are going to introduce them to. I think the most probably the easiest one, and I like one we went with Ali early on, is Proloquo to Go. It is fairly priced, highly customizable. You can edit it to help with some basic foundational communication things. It's got a lot of really good settings in it. But if you were going to go with like, hey, I just want to get one and make it happen, I would probably lean more towards that Proloquo on an iPad.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's what I had been thinking in my research.
And then I would make sure to put it in a durable case and use guided access so that we're not accessing a bunch of other apps when you introduce it, especially if we already like tablets and iPads.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Sherry, I think there's just one other question. The recording's going to be available for everybody?
Yes, it will be. I think the plan is to upload it to the website, similar to how we uploaded the presentations at the summer family meeting.
Thanks.
If there aren't any other questions, I want to thank you, Michael, so much for spending your morning with us, kind of going through this. I think this is incredibly informative, and I know that for us, it was definitely a journey to get to this point. I didn't have a Michael early on in our world, and I sure wish we would have, because I think we would have made a lot of progress a lot earlier. But we're glad we have Mr. Michael in our world now, helping Ellie live her best life. So thank you so much. Thank you for taking your time this morning, and I think this was incredibly beneficial.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And again, anything and everything, you guys don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kyle, is there anything else to add before we drop off?
No, nothing to add other than, just an appreciation for you, our speaker, and equally as important, our participants. Thank you for coming to the first one. Guess what? There's 3 more to come after this. So stay connected, stay in communication, look for our emails and general correspondence, and keep joining us.